Today I'm going to be talking about a movie franchise that probably was all of our favorite movies at some point in our lives, and I know that I'm not the only person that still thinks about these movies to this day. So today we're going to be talking about High School Musical. So I recently rewatched the movies, and I definitely realized how I must not have been paying that much attention as a kid because the messages were definitely hitting different. And in the first movie, the theme that I got out of it was don't miss your blessing trying to abide by the boxes that life, others, or even you will try to put yourself in. I'm not gonna lie, when I was watching the first one, I thought to myself, not High School Musical trying to take me to church. Anyways, as a kid, I definitely viewed Sharpay as the villain in this movie, but upon rewatching, Gabriella and Troy's friends were absolutely tripping. Like, when Chad and them got Troy in the locker room to basically get him to talk crap on Gabriella in the musical, obviously that was crazy. However, we're gonna have to add Troy to that list of villains just for this part, because when they got him in that locker room, he started taking it too far. He started saying all this stuff about how like Gabriella didn't matter and stuff, and it's like, okay, you know, they're wrong for setting this whole thing up, but nobody forced him to say all of that. And don't even get me started on Taylor, because while yes, her and Chad are both equally manipulative, I feel like Taylor might have been a little bit worse, because Gabriella literally started crying after watching the video, and all Taylor had to say after was, "You want to get lunch?" Like, no, she doesn't want to get lunch. You just broke her heart. Anyways, moving on to the second movie. This movie is my personal favorite of the three. I love how vibrant the colors are in this one, and honestly, I find that this one is the most memorable to me, but I had a really hard time putting the theme of this one into words. In this movie, Sharpay kind of does fall into that villain role because she started doing entirely too much. And I know y'all like to spin it and say, oh, but she was trying to help Troy's future, and what was Gabriella doing? But it's really hard to ignore the fact that she was actively trying to steal Gabriella's man. However, I'm not going to completely blame Sharpay because Troy wasn't innocent either. If you notice, in the first movie, there's a scene where he calls Sharpay cute, and so I definitely think in the second movie, he did not hate the attention. And I love Taylor in this movie because I feel like she clocked it from the start, and somebody had to realize what was up. I mean, even though I feel like everybody but Troy did, which furthers my point that I definitely think he was enjoying the attention. But I loved Gabriella's speech to Sharpay right before she sings Gotta Go My Own Way, because I just was feeling like about time somebody checked this girl. My favorite part of the speech is when Gabriella goes like, "What's the prize, Troy?" I was like, yes, because he's really not. Love him though. But I understand from Sharpay's perspective, she felt like, you know, everybody was stepping on her turf, which clearly in the first one she did too. But I feel like if your ability to shine depends on someone else's absence, maybe you weren't that bright in the first place. And to reiterate, I love Sharpay. She's one of my favorite characters, but again, she just was doing too much. So going back to the theme of this movie, when I was younger, I remember being on the friend's side and like Gabriella's side, thinking like, oh, Troy is just switching up and he's not really a wildcat anymore and all this type of stuff. But watching it now, I felt conflicted about it, because on one hand, I felt like Troy was trying to level up and, you know, his friends were just not happy for him, and I felt like they should have been happy for him. And I was on Troy's side this time around, and that was until Troy and Chad were arguing in the kitchen, and Troy basically was saying, you know, I show up to work like the rest of you, and basically sorry that they weren't getting attention and stuff like that. And when I saw that, I was like, another moment where I realized like, okay, I'm not on Troy's side anymore when I was rewatching it was, you know, when Gabriella missed his phone call that one time after he had been flaking on everybody and, you know, missing like events with them and stuff like that. Now she misses one phone call and he sees that Ryan's hanging out with them, and he had like a big attitude. And I was like, okay, Troy, like you can't have it both ways. Like if you're not hanging out with them, why is it a crime that Ryan's hanging out with them? All right, on to the third movie. The third movie is the only one of the three to be released in the movie theater, and I would say that this movie is the full package. The second one is still my favorite, and I feel like when it comes to music, this movie isn't touching the second one, but I feel like overall this movie was just the full package. Like when it came to the music, the themes, and even just the way it looked very cinematic. And I would also say when I was watching this movie, it felt more like a movie than a musical. Like obviously it's still a musical, it's High School Musical, and we love that, but it definitely felt more like just a regular movie. The theme that I got out of the third one was basically that your future is your future, and how important it is to make decisions that are best for you, because you're going to be the person that has to live with them. Once again, High School Musical was taking us to church. When I was watching this one, I thought to myself, dang, like I wish I would have watched this when I was a senior in high school, because I probably would have related a lot more to it than I did when I was like in the 3rd grade. One of my favorite moments in this movie is when Taylor was giving Gabriella advice, because Taylor was just too real for this scene. Because, you know, obviously I love Troy and Gabriella as much as the next person, but I love how Taylor was encouraging her to not be so quick to throw away a good opportunity solely because of your high school boyfriend. But coinciding with the theme, it was ultimately Gabriella's decision to make. I just loved it. I feel like Taylor was being a good friend and she was giving some solid advice, and she just was trying to look out. Finally, these are my top 5 songs across the movies, as well as a few honorable mentions. Making this was honestly a little bit hard because there's just so many good songs, but comment below your top 5 songs. I'd really like to know what everybody else's are. And now we have some superlatives that I made. I obviously had to put Sharpay as the most iconic. You know, I was a little bit hard on her when I was talking about the second movie. However, it is very clear that she is definitely the most iconic character in the films. I thought about putting her for best dressed, simply for this fit alone, but Gabriella's outfits are genuinely my favorite, especially her clothes in the second movie. I feel like her outfits are like the ones that I remember the most or stand out to me the most, because as a kid I had Barbie dolls of like Gabriella. So for my first MVP, I have Kelsey, because Kelsey is my favorite character. Without Kelsey, there are no songs, and I honestly just like the way that she looked out for Troy and Gabriella and for the group as a whole. Literally in the 3rd movie, nobody would have been doing the musical if it wasn't for Kelsey. She's the person that signed everybody up, because everybody was kind of acting like they were, you know, had all these other things that they had to do, which they probably did. It was their senior year, but she reminded them that not only is this their last opportunity to do this, but their last opportunity to do it together. She is definitely the MVP. And then I also put Kenny Ortega, you know, just for making the magic of High School Musical and for making the magic of the Cheetah Girls too, because Cheetah Girls is definitely my favorite. And then I put Taylor, because although Taylor did a lot in the first movie, in the second and third movie, I feel like she was really looking out for Gabriella, and I loved that. I put Chad for best one-liners, because if you go back and rewatch the movies, you'll notice he says some of the funniest stuff. And then I put Zac Efron for the best solo, because Bet On It was obviously incredible. And then for best character development, I put Ryan, because I love how in the first movie, Ryan went from being Sharpay's little flunky to stepping into his own and just having his own storyline. And I just love the way he interacted with the rest of the group when Sharpay was not around in the second movie. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys had fun watching this, because I had fun making it. Please like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.